Christian Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents A Basic Guide to Eschatology, Making Sense of the Millennium by Millard J. Erickson. Narrated by Bob Souer. Preface. The approach of the end of the 20th century and the second Christian millennium has contributed to a growing interest in issues of eschatology. I am grateful to Baker Books and especially its academic books editor, Jim Weaver, for bringing out this revised edition of an earlier work. The chapter on dispensationalism has been rewritten to reflect the changes in that movement known as progressive dispensationalism. The original volume grew out of a request by students at Bethel Theological Seminary for a course that would examine thoroughly and objectively the eschatological options extant in the circles in which they would one day minister. In preparing for that course, I realized that the need for such a study goes beyond the walls of our classroom. Introduction. James Orr, lecturing at the end of the 19th century, observed that various areas of Christian doctrine had received special attention and development at different periods in the history of the Church. Thus, in the 2nd century, the Church dealt especially with apologetics and the fundamental ideas of Christianity. In the 3rd and 4th centuries with the doctrine of God, in the early 5th century with man and sin, in the 5th to 7th centuries with the person of Christ, in the 11th to 16th centuries with the atonement, and in the 16th century with the application of redemption, justification, etc. There had been doctrinal convictions, either implicit or explicit, on these subjects previously, but it was as crises arose in these areas at these particular periods that the positions were more precisely articulated. Orr suggested that the peculiar interest of the modern age is eschatology, the one remaining undeveloped topic of theology. Probably I am not mistaken in thinking that, besides the necessary revision of the theological system as a whole, which could not properly be undertaken till the historical development I have sketched had run its course, the modern mind has given itself with special earnestness to eschatological questions, moved thereto, perhaps, by the solemn impression that on it the ends of the world have come, and that some great crisis in the history of human affairs is approaching. Even here I do not anticipate that the great landmarks in Christian doctrine will undergo any serious change. Orr felt that while the doctrine of eschatology had been discussed in the 19th century, it had yet to receive major treatment and the issues had deepened during the last generation or two. The 20th century has seen intensive study of several specific doctrines. The first half of the century focused uniquely upon the doctrine of revelation. The doctrine of the Church, especially as it related to the ecumenical movement, was discussed at great length in the 2nd quarter, fading gradually in the 3rd quarter. Following that, the doctrine of the person and work of the Holy Spirit received special attention, with a level of concern having now apparently peaked. In more recent years, eschatology seems to have moved to the forefront. Movements such as the theology of hope have given eschatology virtually an exclusive domain. In previous times, a doctrine required a century or more for thorough delineation, but now, with the acceleration of discussion, research, and communication, the periods may have shortened to a quarter century or less. The preoccupation with eschatology has taken different forms in different groups. Within conservative Christian circles, it relates to the order of events connected with the second coming of Christ. Conservatives reached a consensus on the major points of eschatology by the beginning of the 20th century. All human beings, except those still alive when the Lord returns, must undergo physical death, at which time they go to an intermediate state appropriate to their spiritual condition. Those who have trusted themselves to the saving work of Jesus Christ will go to a place of bliss and reward. Those who have not will go to one of punishment and torment. At some future time, Christ will return bodily and personally. Then all the dead will be resurrected and consigned to their ultimate destination, heaven or hell. There they will remain eternally in an unalterable condition. Within this general scheme, however, there has been considerable variation. This has related first to the question of whether there will be a millennium, a 1,000-year earthly reign of Jesus Christ, and then, for those who answer yes, to the question of whether Christ will return at the beginning or end of the millennium. Among those who hold that this
Sample complete. Ready to continue?